That's Roy, that's Pete.
Yep.
And that's
David.
David.
And you're Jim.
Roy, Pete, David, Jim. Well, David, we're off. David's a nice fella. He's got good energy, even though he's got a knee challenge today.
I got no problems.
Safely off the tee on number 3. Well, I'm not sure how to process what just happened, but
On March 1st of this year, 2024, I was 6 months into my journey to par, and I chose to sign up for the World Amateur Open in Myrtle Beach, held at the end of August, as a test of my progress and my mettle at 9 to 10 months into the journey. As part of my 2024 OKRs, which are objectives and key results, I felt that putting myself into self-induced pressure situations would be a healthy and productive practice for the emotional, mental, and psychological resilience necessary to score. That is, to apply my accrued skills and experience in a situation where it matters, even if that matters is manufactured. I trained for it, I prepared for it, best I knew how at the time over the prior 6 months. The tournament threw plenty at me to give me the opportunity to explore my tournament rhythm and that test of mental, emotional, and psychological mettle and resilience. And frankly, some deeper existential matters, as it turned out. And now, it's over. So how'd I do? First, a bit about the experience. For 40 years now, the World Amateur welcomes some 3,000 golfers of all ages and handicaps from all over the world together in Myrtle Beach every year in August. They separate those 3,000 entrants into domains of gross and net play. That is, whether they're playing straight up or they're relying on the equalization of handicap. And those two domains are segmented into flights of 50 based on, in the handicap realm, handicap and age, and in the gross realm, simply by age. I was in flight 31 in the handicap realm, 60 to 69 years of age, and between 12 and a 12.7 handicap. Each flight played 4 rounds of golf over 4 days, each at a different course, which vary some, though not massively in difficulty. In each round, entrants are paired with different golfers, mixing and matching from the same flight. The 4 courses that my flight played had slopes ranging from 110 to 129, which is, difficulty for a mid-handicap or bogey golfer. And they played between 5,400 and 5,900 yards in length. And I frankly would have preferred to probably play longer, 6,000, 6,500 yards where I normally play, because I feel I may have had a bit of an advantage there, because Arcos tells me my average length off the tee is 235, 240 range. Though I admit I like the tactical and technical nature of playing the courses a bit shorter. They're just a different course when you play it that way. And it didn't really matter, because my objective was not to win. My sole objective, or hard objective, was to shoot better than my handicap of 12.8 averaged over 4 rounds under tournament pressure conditions. That is, averaged over 4 rounds to shoot better than my current potential to score, the essential meaning of a handicap. For those 4 par 72 courses, that translated to shoot better than an average of 84.8 over those 4 rounds, or gross of 84.8 times 4, 339 or less. And the second objective was to experiment with finding my tournament rhythm, those rituals and techniques that would help me to benchmark my mental, emotional, psychological resilience at this point in time. Spoiler alert, I did not make the hard objective, barely. And there's a rather bizarre and traumatic story that contributed to that.
well, I'm not sure how to process what just happened.
So stay tuned. So I shot a gross of 347, or about 8 whole measly shots above my objective. Just 2 shots less per each of those 4 rounds and I'd have hit my objective. And that's golf. The story there wasn't in the average across those rounds. It was in the arc across those rounds. The first round, hardest course, matched up with a nice group of fellas, And my cart and playing partner was a talkative, happy-go-lucky fellow named David.
Roy, that's Pete.
Yep.
And that's
David.
David.
And you're Jim.
Roy, Pete, David, Jim. And we're on hole number 1, heading off.
He was clearly a super passionate and a very colorful golfer. A talkative fellow who shared with us an array of information while we were waiting to go to the tee and pre-tee off, one of which was that he had recently sustained a leg injury and proceeded to lift his pant leg over this highly swollen black and blue lower leg, and we were alarmed and said as much in a respectful way that one would do, not knowing a man for more than a few minutes. Still, we insisted he belonged with a doctor and not the 3 12-something handicaps at a random golf course in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He demurred, having none of it, and jocularly said we sounded like his wife, who he also told us was playing in the tournament in the women's division. So, off we went.
Well, David, we're off. David's a nice fella. He's got good energy, even though he's got a knee challenge today.
I got knee problems.
But we're off, and David's a little right, safe.
Stay out of the
He's
jump.
right there, isn't it? Isn't that you? And I am straight down the middle.
No, I think that's the other guy. I don't think I could get it that far.
So, safely off, one shot at a time. Let's go.
I parred the first hole handily, and then doubled the second. Silly mistake that cost me, but didn't really rattle me. I was feeling pretty good, even with the nerves. But the nerves were gone after the first hole. In the third tee shot, I was safely off the tee and in prime position.
Safely off the tee on number 3. Shot at the green. I think we're all safely off, aren't we, David?
Yeah.
Felt great. And then David died. No lie. My playing partner died right there midway through the third hole. We had stopped at his ball, and I took my rangefinder and a few clubs and walked up to my ball, which is on the other side of the fairway. And the next, I was analyzing and prepping for my shot, and the next thing I knew, I heard this shout from behind and a horrible crash. And I wheeled around to see that the cart was wedged in between 2 trees, and another playing partner, this fellow named Roy, had just sprinted over to it, and the look on his face was clear from 30 yards away. The cart had gone full speed into these 2 trees, and the unspoken logic there was clearly that something not good had happened to David. He had a seizure, lost consciousness, whatever, and just went straight into it. I immediately called 911, and the 4th fellow called the clubhouse. And I'll spare you all the details, but the summary was that David was sort of conscious and mumbly right after the collision while I was on the phone to 911, but soon he lost all consciousness just after I finished with the 911 operator. And we did what we could before the ambulance got there, which took forever. It took like 15 to 20 minutes. And we later heard that he died with a blood clot from the brain that came from his leg injury. That's the report that came back to us. Yeah. After the ambulance left, we were stunned. We were just sitting there with our ball sitting in the fairway, and what do we do?
Well, I'm not sure how to process what just happened, but my playing partner may have just died. He had an episode in the cart, and I was walking up to my ball here, and he went straight off into the tree and floored it. And
I still got everything out of this cart that's yours.
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
No, we'll keep it for you.
And so, do we keep on playing? And the answer is, I guess so. So, not sure how to process what just happened.
What does one do after something like that happens? Do we play? Do we quit? Do we honor him? Are we disrespectful? It was this incredible jumble of emotions and thoughts, and I mean the whole tournament was backed up behind us. I think we were the second group off or third group off, and did that really matter anymore? And all these thoughts were running through our brain. And we just had no idea what somebody does after such a thing. And I was torn about recording my thoughts or feelings because I had my camera with me, but that seemed disrespectful and sort of maudlin and just gross. And it was super confusing, and it was spooky, it was haunting, it was distressful, disturbing. It was so many of these things. And I did try to record a few of my emotions for the couple holes after that because they were just right there. It was super raw.
The fellow's name was David. He was a really sweet guy. And he said he wasn't feeling very good with his left leg, and he was being really stoic. I've been thinking about it. I decided to process it and turn it on to honor him. Didn't know the man, but clearly he loved golf. And yeah, so I'm going to do my very best to play well today. Even though I double bogeyed the first hole after the incident. But I'm green in regulation now and trying to be feeling somber and reflective, and still not sure how to process what just happened.
There's so many words I could use to describe the experience, and I'm not even sure if I processed it properly or well even since then. But all those words are just insufficient. It was bizarre. That's the only word I can say. And I mean, it was, well, on one hand it was circle of life, on the other hand it was super traumatic for everybody, and it was poor wife, poor David, etc. So we struggled with what to do, deciding to carry on or not. And I didn't know what to do or how to process after that moment. And ultimately, I cracked on. We all did. As you might imagine, I did not shoot well that day. I felt guilty about the shots or holes that I was playing well on, or I was able to focus and perform. And I was annoyed and maybe even justified when I didn't, thinking it was disrespectful to compartmentalize the emotion and the trauma or the compassion in order to play the game well. And ultimately, I shot a 91 that day, 7 over my cut line, the aim of an 84. And it was, yeah, it was brutal, it was confusing on so many levels, and David's passing definitely left the course with all of us. We stayed in constant communication. We went to offer our condolences to the wife through the tournament directors, etc. Yeah, it was not great. And I went home and had long chats with my partner, Jesse, who was super helpful, super compassionate. And just by the next morning, after much talking with Jesse and some deep consideration, I decided to honor David and set out to shoot the best round of my life. I meditated, I visualized, I redefined my round prep routine, and Jesse was a super big help in talking that out and processing the event, and sort of came to the conclusion that David clearly loved the game of golf. I mean, he loved it. It was obvious, not even knowing him for an hour. And though I didn't, know him well, I could easily have imagined him saying that if he was going to die, he'd want to die on a golf course, which is an awful thing to say, but I can imagine it. Still. So, on the second round, the first 9, I shot a 39, 3 over. I was playing really, really well. And I thought I was on track to truly shoot the best round I have ever shot, having matched my low score for 9 holes. And that was, I barely missed shooting scratch golf for that 9 holes. Just some tiny mistakes and a couple missed totally makeable putts. And then something happened as we made the turn. I don't know if it was the heat. I don't know if it was I was properly hydrated, if I'd ate enough food, or if there was trauma. I was probably still dealing with trauma, but was that the reason? Whatever the reasons were, I blanked out. I mean, I checked out. I went disassociated, like on the outside looking into this puppet body. It was wild. I couldn't control my swing or my thoughts. It was kooky. It was like trying to play a video game that you'd never played before. And I'd never experienced that kind of detachment before. Never. I ended up shooting a 51 on the second nine. Fully 15 strokes over par for that second nine. 39 on the first nine, 51 on the second nine. Total, 90. That second nine, I gotta tell you, was tough. I haven't shot that bad around a nine since the beginning when I started playing golf 9 months ago. Starting the round with my best 9 holes at 3 over and then shooting 15 over for the second nine was, I'll say, mightily discouraging. Yeah. I didn't feel in the mood to attribute excuses. Didn't feel that way at all. I wasn't even mad. I was confused. And I was earnestly seeking to understand what had happened, to learn and adapt and do better the next time. And to this day, I have no idea. I have not been able to process it. I don't know what happened. It felt like a disconnect from physical and mental acuity, completely spaced out, the fog. I was aware of it. I felt completely ineffectual in rectifying it. So that night, I reset and recommitted to my preparation routine, which I'll summarize in a bit, to ensure that I was at least taking variables off the table. Like ensuring in the round 3 that I was overhydrating, that I'd committed to a specific cadence of energy intake, and the pre-round and mid-round stretching routines and meditation. And I also decided to try adding wearing my AirPods, which I never did, playing some flow state music to see if that would help. And I had no idea if any of it would help. I was just trying to remove as many of the possible variables that might contribute. And in the third round, I did better, way better. I shot an 81, 41 on the front and 40 on the back, fully 9 strokes better than the round before, on a similar difficulty course. That is the same slope. I was so close to breaking 80, which would have been a first. Some silly mistakes from clear lapses in focus, including a silly double on 18, totally avoidable, about which I was fully cognizant after the fact. That is, I could understand the mistake and correct for it going forward. None of that outright disassociation fog that day. And in the final, 4th round, I shot an 85, essentially my handicap. And I was playing very good golf for me that could have easily gone lower with a couple breaks and, again, a stronger focus flow muscle. So how did I do in the relative field of all other golfers? The essence, overall, I was top 30th percentile placement. And just a few strokes, I mean literally a few strokes from top 10th percentile. I placed 16th out of 50 in my flight. I placed 310th out of 910 players in my age group of 60 to 69 for net score, and 278th out of 910 players in my age group for gross score. And for all players across all age groups with handicap between 11 and 14, so above and below my handicap, I placed 91st out of 275 players for net and 50th out of 275 players for gross, interestingly. Knowing I can score better than I did, which will come with more practice and training, particularly under competitive conditions, for both physical and mental, emotional, psychological aspects of the game. So I was simultaneously disappointed, even annoyed with the results, and okay with the results, especially with the clear learnings of what can work better for my tournament rhythm and removing variables to non-optimal play. And I felt pretty good about not blaming the trauma of David's untimely passing while still recognizing and respecting it. So I settled on the ultimate outcomes as clear actionable learnings and a progress benchmark I felt optimistic about after playing for only 9 months. So what about the routine? So here's what I learned about how to play tournament golf, and presumably rituals that I would consider adopting to score better in regular non-tournament rounds. In no particular order. 1, meditation. A 20-minute meditation the morning of each round is important, with a couple minutes of visualization and intention setting afterwards. This has turned out to be transcendent of golf for me. It's incorporated now into my life all the time, full stop. 2, stretching and light exercise pre-round and then during the round. So I was already doing this the morning of each round and added it to the evening before each round, and then added a mini meditation and stretch at the turn. Turns out downward dogs at the snack shop or the 10th tee is not a common sight. 3, hydration. I converged on committing to a liter per hour in consumption, drinking a bit after virtually every shot, and adding electrolytes. I'm using Element, watermelon flavor. Love it at the moment. 4th is energy intake. I have a hard time knowing whether I need energy until it's too late and the fog rolls in. So I tried variations of a ritual. I always started with a sausage egg McMuffin pre-round. It's my guilty travel pleasure. And calorically essentially similar to my go-to normal breakfast of 3 eggs, toasted heavy brown bread, half an avocado, and a slice of cheese. And then eating a peanut butter Clif Bar halfway through each of the front and back 9, then an apple at the turn, and munching on beef jerky as much as I like along the way. The 5th was strategy. The specific strategy I went with in this tournament was pretty simple. It was greens in regulation, par putts as a backup strategy, and purposeful mental resets after each hole, then after 3 holes, and big time after 9 holes. Just mentally consider each as separate objectives. Once done, however I scored, reset it for the next. I visualized the magician's flash paper and burned the previous segments. 6th was disciplined pre-round warm-up ritual. I did less on the range and more around the greens. That is, I used the range more for actual warming up the body and sort of assessing where my swing was for the day for wedges, irons, hybrids, and driver, more to inform strategy than to fix anything. And then I spent 30 minutes chipping and playing 18 holes of putting. That is, put out 18 of my balls in a modified target pattern with increasing distance, and some wild cards, some longer, different angles, and play for par. Doesn't take long. I found it trained my balls to find the hole. 7th was a disciplined ritual for setup and execution on each and every shot. Never let up on being dedicated to this, which of course I did on occasion, obviously, but I could tell when I did, which is progress. And I don't change the specific routines I have across driver, irons, hybrids, wedges, and putter during the round. I stick with what I have and compartmentalize any notes I might have, and I put them in a metaphorical jar and I label it and put it on a mental shelf to possibly try out and practice later. Number 8 was I just try to keep invoking fun. Focused but not overly serious, and it's less about mental toughness, beating myself up like, come on, Jim, and it's more about emptying the mind of thoughts and emotions and live the moment through the mechanics of the dedication to rituals and let what I've learned flow through. Let the magic happen through the mechanics and rituals instead of forcing outcomes into existence. And finally, not to try and self-document my rounds during a competition. I'm simply unable to balance personally videoing myself during a competition, even with this super simple setup that I have for my camera rigs. And that's what I've learned for now. I have a few smaller tournaments coming up, and I'll continue to practice in. And I'll keep on entering tournaments to exercise this tournament muscle. Remember to subscribe and like or comment. It helps the channel. And reach out if you're keen to collaborate or share your stories or your journey. Party Guy is a mindset, not a person. Always better, ever best.